What up, guys? Welcome to Reality Benders episode 4. We making progress here. Today we got my homie Andrew Southworth on. Now, this guy is a huge inspiration to me. He's been absolutely killing it. You know, he's between his YouTube channel where he's been growing a lot, specifically in the music marketing niche, as well as himself as an artist. He's really providing a lot of tools for, other musicians and creatives to really grow their following and create something sustainable. So could you just start by giving people a little more about your background and, what you're doing right now?
Yeah, so I'm Andrew Southworth. I'm a music producer and a vocalist, and I am completely independent. And basically, along the way, I realized that I either couldn't afford to hire someone to do something, or I didn't have the resources to go out and do it. So my process has always been to go learn what I need to do. Like that's the whole reason I started singing. And then eventually that turned into to produce my own music because I couldn't hire someone. And then it turned into how to market my own music because I couldn't afford to hire someone to do it. So currently what I'm doing is like my main platform is YouTube, where I share a lot of essentially what I'm doing marketing my music.
Mm-hmm.
And I tend to specialize in Facebook ads because that's where I found the best results. But it is I guess my channel is all about helping other music creators get their music heard in whatever way works for me. I just share it, and hopefully it helps the most amount of other creatives as possible.
So when you started your YouTube channel, what was your initial plan? Like, was that what initially you wanted to do with it? Or did you have other, like, how did you get started with it?
So I think my first video was probably 2007 or something, when I was like 16 or something. I'm 28 now. So my first kind of like main content that I cared about was I was posting screaming lessons because I'm in a few metal bands, and so I was teaching how to scream on YouTube, which not many people were doing. Like basically, I had trouble learning it. I figured it out, and I started making recurring content on how to scream. And I think that wasn't until I was like 18, 19, 20 when I started doing that. And then eventually over time, I just got bored of talking about screaming because there's really only so much you can teach people on how to do metal vocals, at least what I felt like. So eventually I transitioned into doing music production, and I started covering a lot of software reviews and hardware reviews. And I liked doing that, but the problem was the content didn't encourage people to really, I guess, care about me and what I was doing. They were there because they wanted to hear the thing I was demoing. And so they would come in, watch a little bit of the video, and leave, never subscribe, never see any of my other videos.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to mix myself more and more into my content. And then eventually I just kind of stumbled across sharing my music marketing content. And that's what resonated the most with people in terms of sticking around, engaging with my content, asking questions, and coming back time and time and again.
Mm-hmm. So I feel like most people get into marketing as almost like a necessity. You know what I mean? I feel like, and when you first started diving into that world, like, what was your experience? Like, did you find that it's been something that's taken a while to develop, or like, how have you really, not just gotten started in that world, but reached a point where you're actually sufficient with it and able to get results?
Right. I think so. I started releasing music formally in 2018, and I don't think I really started marketing it until 2019 is when I really started taking it seriously.
Mm.
So it took me a lot of years to figure out just to even get my music released. And then it took about 2 years to really figure out a marketing process that worked at all. Because all of 2019 essentially was just me blowing money and testing things out and failing repetitively until like the end of the year, I finally came across the Facebook ads.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on how you look at it, either like a year or 2 years or 15 years, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no matter what you're doing, whether you're, starting your own business, whether you're trying to be a musician, like any form of creativity, anything that involves getting like the world we live in nowadays is all about attention. Like attention is the most valuable asset that we can have. And once we have that attention, we can use it for whatever we want, whether that's a nonprofit, whether that's a business, whether that's your music. And, marketing specifically with Facebook ads is really the most powerful tool we have right now, just because Facebook has so much information about everyone that, with, traditional advertising, if you paid thousands of dollars for a billboard, you're just hoping that the people that drive by that are the people that want what you are offering. Whereas nowadays you can target specifically just the people. Like if you're into Korean death metal or something, like you can, no matter what it is, like you can find your audience. So what's so empowering once you realize that is it really comes down to just, if you can learn how to leverage this platform properly, like you have the ability to get in front of the people that matter. But I think for a lot of us where that gets really overwhelming is, we either have to pay these people thousands of dollars and we really don't know what we're doing. We're kind of just hoping that what they're going to do is going to work. Or, we start diving in that world ourselves. And I think a lot of people like, they'll dip their toe in, but when they don't get results with the first couple $100 and, they're penny pinching, it's hard to not feel like, I feel like I'm wasting my money. And, I think a lot of us can understand, it starts with this kind of, more top of the funnel approach where we got to get that audience first. But how do you, get through that initial phase of like knowing you're going to waste a lot of money and, really cracking that code? Because it's really unsettling when you're spending all this money. Like, how do you really push through that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if there's necessarily a firm kind of black and white answer to it, because for everyone it's going to be a little bit different depending on what their needs are. I think the first thing to think about is that try to avoid anything that's a black box, meaning you don't want to be putting money into something that you don't understand and that you don't know what's happening and that you can't extract any value out of it. Like, for example, every marketing effort has the potential to fail. Mm-hmm. Like essentially you could at any given time fail entirely. And you don't want to be in a situation where you get nothing from that. You want to at least be able to say, for example, with Facebook ads, you can come out of the other side and you at least knew what you did wrong, or at least now you know what not to do, or at least you have a bunch of data that you can utilize after the fact. So for me, that's an important thing, at least in hindsight, thinking like with like, I guess, playlist pitching, for example. You put a bunch of money, you give a bunch of money to someone and they say, you get on all these playlists. You get nothing from that. You don't build any relationships. You don't get any data. You put money into a black box and you get something back. And I think that's one of the I mean, it's very vague to say, right? Like a lot of artists are thinking like, what is that really, like, that's not a firm answer. But the thing is, there's really no firm answer of how to get past that initial block of, am I wasting money or not? The only thing you can do is just ensure that even if you fail, you know how to learn from that, because that way failure isn't really failing, it's learning. It's expensive learning, but it's learning.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that's, settled me a lot is viewing this initial, because I'm in that phase right now, right? Like I've had success with e-commerce before and I've built a successful business, and what I understand the concept that, you have to spend money to make money, and, just navigating those waters of knowing like where am I wasting and how do I, adjust properly, because, like you said, there's not a definite return. Like what you're doing is not just because these ads are successful for people don't mean they're necessarily going to automatically work for you. So, it's very tricky trying to figure out how to, navigate those waters. And that's why it's really interesting to, a big, the formula to success, I'll say it time and time again, it's, identifying what you want, finding the people that have it, and then figuring out, what habits and patterns and what they're doing every single day and repeating that process, right? That's a big reason why I had you on, is because I'm trying to figure that out. But, regardless of what niche you're in, whether that's music, whether that's your business, whatever it is, you need to be leveraging these because it's such a powerful tool. It can get overwhelming though, because it feels like you do a lot of research and then, like people start selling you their courses, and that can be really useful. I've definitely benefited from a lot of courses, but sometimes you get burned from them. You know what I mean? So
I've taken almost every single music marketing course you could possibly find on Google. because I had the same mindset where it's like, well, even if you have to spend like a couple $100s in a course, it's like, it might sound like a lot of money, but if you have the potential to make that or way more, then it's worth it. And with music marketing courses, they tend to be on the cheaper side compared to e-commerce courses, where it's pretty common to spend over $1,000 on a advanced e-commerce course, because they know that, well, they'll at least say that they know that they can pretty much guarantee you'll get some amount of results. You know, at least make back that money on your course if you follow through. So there is that kind of aspect of just like going out there and learning and doing that. I don't even remember what I was initially saying, but I was commenting on those courses stuff. But
yeah. So, you know, outside of the ads, right? So that's its own, you know, whole mind fuck that we have to go through, is figuring that out. But outside of that, we also have, you know, organic content creation. And, you know, I've been really focusing recently on trying to get like a systematic posting schedule. But, you know, between YouTube and Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok and new platforms emerging, there's so many areas that divide and dilute our focus. How do you juggle knowing, you know, what is something that's worth the investment, that's just going to take patience, and what is a waste of your time?
I tend to encourage people to only pursue a couple platforms they know they can dominate at. Meaning, as much as it would be perfect to go on YouTube, go on Instagram, go on TikTok, go on, you know, whatever, Triller and Facebook and Twitter, all these platforms, you don't have the resources to do it all unless you have a team, which later on you might, but right now you probably don't. So what I tell people is, pick a few platforms that you're going to just commit to for like 6 months. Like, you're going to publish on YouTube once a week for like 6 months or a year. You're going to post on Instagram every day or two for like 6 months to a year. And you're going to post on, I don't know, Twitter or something 3 times a day for a year. And you can pick those core like 2 or 3 platforms. And in addition to that, you can say, well, I'm going to spend like 10% of my time on exploratory platforms. Like maybe TikTok's one of your main platforms, or maybe it's not. Maybe you started off on YouTube and Facebook and those are your mains. And so now you're going to spend like 10% of your time just exploring TikTok. And that's what I think is the best way to get into it, because it avoids the burnout problem of trying to accomplish more than you can realistically handle. It's much better to pick one platform and just crush it than be on like 15 platforms doing a half-assed job. So I've tried to be omnipresent before, and what ends up happening is you just end up taking like 2 weeks off because you just get burnt out, and then all your platforms suffer.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And that was the big issue I had. I was trying to do them all at once. And the first time I could say I really got momentum was when I only focused on TikTok. I did nothing but TikTok because it was blowing up. Now I'm trying to hedge a little because I'm not sure if it's even going to be around anymore. But like, at least for me, what's been a real struggle is I know I fall in the trap of shiny object syndrome, and I'm constantly excited by this new thing. And then I feel guilty when I'm not leveraging it, even though I already feel I'm spread thin. And then I see things like Facebook ads that can be really effective, and I know I need to be utilizing. But then when I'm doing the Facebook ads, I'm like, well, I'm not putting out content. And it becomes so overwhelming to try and micromanage all these areas. You know, that's why I always preach the importance of like creating a very systematic process that can kind of drip feed itself through your content.
Yeah. And that's the nice thing about essentially what I do with my main videos and my interview stuff that goes in my podcast, and what you're going to be doing with your podcast stuff is that you can get that one piece of content and you could turn it into a hour-long video. You can turn it into 6 Instagram posts. You can turn it into a couple Twitter posts, a couple TikTok posts. And that's where you can actually kind of be omnipresent a little bit. But even if you look at it that way, you're still like, with you focusing on your show, you're saying, I'm going to commit to YouTube, you know, for, I don't know how frequent you're going with this, but once or twice.
Week, every Monday.
And you're going to do that for like 6 months to a year before you even think about switching to it, because that, like, it takes a while to develop any platform. But essentially like you're going to repost it on all these other places. And so you're reutilizing that content. And then when you get that shiny object syndrome, that's when you just spend that, 10% of experimental time.
Yeah.
Just test the waters, put
It's
a
like
few posts up.
diversifying your portfolio.
Yeah. And
Same concept. Put 10%.
I've been trying to do that
Yeah.
as much as I can. Like you don't want everyone to be in one platform, because what happens when Facebook says, well, we're going to make Facebook pages basically useless. All of a sudden, a lot of businesses get very screwed by that. But if they diversified and built that same audience on like 3 platforms, well, if one tanks, it's like, who cares?
So what do you think is the biggest obstacle you're trying to overcome right now?
Oh man. This is like a job interview question. The one thing that I struggle with the most is I think it would be staying, I guess, organized. Is that a good word? I guess
creating a workflow.
Yeah, like I've been struggling with organizing my process for the past like 6 months or more. I have taken a lot of steps to, I guess, what's the word? Streamline and optimize my workflow. But it's kind of an ongoing battle, because you always want to be producing more and more content, but you only have so many hours you can commit to anything. So I'd say for me, it's maybe not necessarily the content, because I feel like I've gotten to the point where my content, I've like cut the time it takes to create a piece of content by like a factor of 5. For me, it's more kind of premeditating all my content, so that I'm not waiting until the day by day to execute it. Because literally like tomorrow I have to upload a video. It's not even, I haven't even thought of the idea for the video yet. And it's going to be going online tomorrow. So that means what's going to happen is tomorrow at about 6 p.m., I'm gonna bang out the video, edit it, and it's gonna be up online by 9:30. And that's a common thing for me. But I don't really want it to be that way. I'd like to say like, yeah, my videos are scheduled for the next month and a half. Because then I can really start to like premeditate stuff. Like I can say, well, I'm gonna create this video, and this is like a real content hooker. This is what brings people in. So I can bring people in with this video, and while that video is just crushing it, they're gonna be followed on by all these videos in this sequence. I can't do that with this kind of like seat to your pants style, like banging out a video the day it goes up. So for me, that's probably the biggest thing, like organizing and planning ahead of time. It's, but,
So you talk to both a lot of marketers that are pretty successful, as well as I'm sure a lot of people hit you up with, questions. So you have a good, range of the spectrum of what a lot of people are doing. What would you say is the biggest factors that the people that are successful are doing compared to the people that aren't?
Well, that's a really good question. The thing that the people who aren't successful that I see very common, and keep in mind, this is in most largely music producer and music artist world. I'll see people that they might hit me up on Instagram and they'll say like, I'm having trouble with this ad stuff, or I'm getting this really expensive results. And in a lot of cases, I find that they're not necessarily at the point where they're ready to run the ads. So it's kind of an issue where people are jumping the gun with their marketing, where they might be, for example, they've come out with a couple songs and they've never tried to grow on any platform organically, and they haven't tasted the failure yet, really, and they want to jump right into spending this money on ads. And what happens is that since they just started, they don't have much content out, is that they don't really know who their target audience is. They don't really have a brand established yet. They haven't had to make content on a recurring basis for anyone yet. So they're kind of putting the what is it saying? The wagon before the hearse, cart before the horse. And they want to promote something that doesn't really exist yet. And the problem with that is that your stickiness rate of your brand is going to be so incredibly low. Because like if someone comes to your Spotify and Instagram page and you don't even have a on your Spotify. You have like 2 Instagram posts. You don't even have a link anywhere on your profile. The chances of someone sticking around there are much lower. So what happens is that you might get some streams, like if we're promoting a song off of your campaign, but you're not going to be getting those followers. You're not going to be getting the people that they're so passionate about your content that they send you a DM or they look you up online and they follow your YouTube channel. Yeah. You don't get all of those benefits. So that's one side. The people that are successful, when they hit me up, and it's like they're not reaching out to me and be like, yo, I need some help marketing my music. They're hitting me up and like, hey, I've been making music for a couple of years. I've been testing out with ads, but I've been having this result. This is exactly how I'm failing. What should I do with this? This is what I've tried. Here's some screenshots. And I go to their Instagram page and they have like hundreds of posts. They've built up a small community without ads, and they've kind of done it all to an extent without the ads. So what happens is when you use Facebook ads is you're adding fuel to the fire. Yeah. Like Facebook ads they might seem magical, but they're not magical. All they do is to get whatever posts you have and increase the engagement or increase the impressions of it. If your posts and your page suck from the start, you're just getting more people that don't like your content. So it's kind of a combination of people who don't have their stuff figured out yet are kind of the people that are the less successful, and the people that are the most successful are the ones who are willing to try and fail, and they're very analytical about everything they do. And before they even come to me, they've tried a whole bunch of things.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's so true. Like if you don't have a reason for someone to stick around, even if you get their initial attention, like they're not going to stick around. You know
right.
What I mean? And so I feel like that part is so important. Plus that'll make your ads better, because when you sharpen the skill set of creating engaging content, well, you can then just use that engaging content in your ad and it's going to perform better.
Right. And even to give like my own example of how I think I dropped the ball on a release before, I have a project called Day 4, which is an awesome band. We're kind of like Linkin Park style music. I'm the vocalist in it. And last year we came up with an album, and it did get like 300,000 streams within a couple of months. It did pretty well. What I think we failed at is before we even released that album, we should have had the next 3 singles ready, because now it's 7 months later and we haven't had another song out. So what's going to happen when we want to run ads to those people? We essentially can't retarget any of those people. And because there's a 180-day limit on retargeting. And we didn't keep engaging that community of people that we built up on Instagram with those ads. So when we put out a new post that we have something new, a lot of those people are going to be like, who is this band again?
Yeah.
You know? So
I do that on Instagram. Like after I haven't posted for a while, I'll post and then my followers go down.
Right. Yeah. Because
it's all these people. Yeah.
That's pretty common, because people will come to you for one thing. And if you don't post often enough, they just forget who you are. And you might think, how could they possibly forget me? Well, you don't realize that, like when someone's scrolling on their feed and they see some post, like they might have seen one picture from you ever. They don't even know your name. Just that one post caught their attention. So as soon as you post the second thing a week and a half later, they're like, who is this and why should I care?
Yeah.
But if you do it every day, the people that stick with you care enough to see you every day.
Yeah. So how do you go about networking and creating relationships? I know we talked on your podcast, about like the number one key to, networking is providing value, right? It's a relationship. There's a give and there's a take. And if you expect someone to give, you got to give just as much in return. But, part of that process is like, when you're reaching out to these people, how do you determine, how to provide them value?
So for me now, if for example, if I wanted to have someone I would consider a fantastic, harder to reach guest on the show, for example, on my podcast and YouTube channel. Yeah. The way that I would be providing them value is I would make sure to emphasize in my email to them, hey, I have, 17,000 subscribers and I have this many listeners, and it's in this niche that you're in, and you'll probably get some kind of audience. Some portion of my audience will go check out your stuff. So for them, it's free exposure. Now, that's hard to do. This is the whole like chicken before the egg situation, where if you don't have an audience, how the hell do you leverage an audience? So I think for those people, you have to be a little more creative. And I talked on my show last week that I had on Matt Pelosi from Cyber PR, and he told me that the way he got into working at Cyber PR, and if you don't know what Cyber PR is, they're like a pretty well-known music PR agency, and their owner is like pretty well-known. She's written books on marketing and PR and stuff like that. And he wanted to work for her because she's kind of like legendary in that realm. So he messaged them and said, I will work for free if you just teach me what you know. That might not be for everyone, but like that's a pretty damn good value. You're saying I'll work for you for like free for 10 hours a week or whatever. Yeah. And if you're a musician and maybe you're trying to sell beats, like maybe you can find some mid-tier rappers and you could offer them some free beats in exchange for shout outs and credits. If you're a rapper, I guess that's a little more creative. You might find a producer that's just a little bit above you. You know, don't shoot for, I don't know, don't shoot for Marshmello or Flume or something. Shoot for someone, like if you're at 1,000 monthly listeners, shoot for someone with 10,000 monthly listeners. Say, hey, I know you have a bigger audience, but you know, my audience isn't too much smaller. And maybe they're really engaged in one platform, and maybe you have a bigger Instagram following than they do, even though they're much bigger than you on Spotify.
Yeah.
So even if you're small, you still have more leverage than you think. Even just ignoring the whole like, oh, I'll make some artwork for you. Oh, I'll pay you. Those kind of things. Like, try to like maybe shrink your expectations at first about who you can get, but you can come up with a way to convince a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, and when you initially hit me up, like you gave me a pretty great value proposition. We talked about this on our episode of my channel. You know, you're like, hey, I have some friends. We're doing great on TikTok, and I'm doing decent on TikTok too, and I'm cranking out this music, and I'm doing all this stuff, and you're doing this stuff, and I want to learn that, and we can kind of all learn from each other.
Yeah. Well, that's something I've been I've been toying around with a lot with is, you know, understanding this concept of how valuable increasing your network is. Like one of the quickest way to like grow your success and create momentum is who is in your network, right? Yeah. And it's very easy to grow your network. No matter what it is that you want to do, it's as simple as going on Google, going on YouTube, going on Instagram, looking up whatever the person you want in your network is, whether that's, you know, someone who's good with finances or someone in health or marketing, whatever it is. And you literally just go to them and you look at like, what do they need? Right. And sometimes I just ask them, just like, what do you need?
It's nice to know that like, if someone has a question for me that is like in the PR world, yeah, I can just shoot a message to Matt Pelosi, who I talked to last week. And it's nice to know that if I'm having trouble with my mixing or mastering, I have my friend Jerry. Mm-hmm. And if he has questions with marketing, he knows he has me. And if I have questions with, you know, for example, e-commerce, you have a lot of experience in that. So it's very handy to build up your network in a million ways. Like aside from the fact that you develop actual like friendships and stuff from this, people you can talk to, it's pretty valuable. Even if you're not making a relationship with like Drake or something. Like it's,
well, you also don't know where that person's going to be. Like, for example, when I was like 19, I went to this e-commerce conference and I met this couple, and, you know, this was for Amazon. Like, this is completely different from music. Like, this has nothing to do with music. And, like, they were super nice, like befriended them. You know, I was in Austin, Texas for the weekend, you know, hung out with them a couple of times. And, you know, they made an offhanded comment about like, oh, you should collab with our daughter. And I was like, oh yeah, sure. Like it never really turned into anything. And you know, I'm 19, their daughter's like 12 at the time. So I'm not really thinking much about it. And then, you know, she's like a beast with her content. Like she's consistently putting out stuff every week on YouTube. Like it's gotta be nice not having to work a job. That's gotta make it easier to put out content, but I digress. Like she's killing it. Props to her. And, you know, randomly one of her videos gets discovered by Shane Dawson. And, next thing you know, she's literally doing a video with Shane Dawson, and like overnight she's getting like hundreds of thousands of subscribers. And then outside of that, she went on to America's Got Talent, and she actually got the golden buzzer on America's Got Talent. Her name's Sophie Pecora, by the way, if anyone wants to check her out. She's killing it. And like now she's like established in the industry. And like what's crazy is like I found out about her when she had like 1,000 subscribers, and that never really cultivated anything. I still talk with her mom, but like still you never know where someone's going to end up. So you invest in these relationships, and especially when you're investing with people that are serious, right? People that aren't just trying to flex, like they're doing this because they legitimately love it and they're trying to make a career out of it. Like you don't know where they're going to be in 5 years. And as long as, go ahead.
It's funny you brought that. So I was talking to a rapper. I don't know if you saw this video of mine. The rapper called Young L3X or Young Lex.
Yeah, he's actually my next episode. I had him on.
Oh right,
a couple days ago.
So he's an awesome man, and it's cool because like he has like 300,000 monthly listeners, and like he's getting a lot of volume and streams. He's making a living off of his streaming revenue, which is nuts, right? And you're talking to him, and he's so humble about it. It's almost like he doesn't even know. Like no one's told him yet. And if I go to like his top song, like he's collaborating with someone who like I've never heard of because I'm not big in like the hip hop world, called Joyner Lucas.
Dude, how do you not know Joyner?
That's what all the comments in the video is like. You don't know Joyner Lucas? Anyway, so I'm talking to him. I'm like, how did you pull this collab off? And he's telling me that like, well, it was like it was 2016. He was also a Boston-based hip hop artist, and they were both kind of like in the same ballpark of audience size at the time, I guess. And he just collabed with them because he was like, well, he's a local artist in my same niche who I, think's a cool dude.
Yeah. And
what happened is later on, that guy just kind of popped, right?
Yeah.
And
he popped.
He popped. Right? I mean, he's got 9 million or something monthly listeners, that guy, Joyner Lucas. And, you never know when that's going to happen. So it's always good to be a little more open, I think, than closed with collaborations. Like it's better to collaborate with someone who won't do you any good than it is to not collaborate with someone who might blow up.
Yeah, well, plus you're getting the reps in, right? Like and you're developing that relationship. Like coming back to, we talked about like the networking, like it's not just who you know, it's who they know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the way I see it is every time I collab with someone, we now have an invested interest to help each other, because if that person blows up, we make money from that. So if I have a legitimate reason I need someone in my circle, and someone in my circle has someone in their circle that can help me, they're going to be like, of course. Because if I blow up tomorrow and then they have a song with me, that could lead to them, making money from that. Plus just going through the process of making a song with someone, like you develop a stronger relationship, because that's a whole process. But that could be in anything. That's not just music. That could be whatever you're doing. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And it's definitely true that the act of collaborating with someone is kind of like almost like a friendship building activity.
Yeah.
Because, you meet someone and like you might talk a little bit, but when you're writing a song with someone, like you kind of need to know, both you need to know what the song's about. So you kind of get into that person's headspace, and you're bouncing back ideas, and you have to be very open with them. Like you have to be able to tell this person, I don't like this idea. I do like this idea. And it's, most of my friends that I talk to on a regular basis ended up being musicians, because this might sound weird to say, but it's because there's like a reason to keep talking with them on a regular basis. Where I bet if you think back to your like high school friends, how many of them do you really talk to? Probably.
Oh yeah, not a
probably
lot.
Only a few. I mean, in my case, the only ones I talk to are the ones that I continue to do the music with.
Even if you have like a good relationship with them and they're your friends, like as you get older, you just have more obligations. And like when you really invest in like building your career, naturally your entire life gets encompassed by that. So people that aren't in that field tend to, get put on the back burner, because You know, like at least for me, like I work from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week.
Yeah.
Like that is a large period where I'm not talking or hanging with my friends. And, you know, that's because I love what I do. But a big breakthrough I had on the podcast I released today actually was, you know, we were talking about from the health perspective, like, you know, how you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And, you know, that quote always gives me anxiety because I look at a lot of people in my life and I'm like, I don't want to be the average of you. And, you know, a big breakthrough I had is, you know, I realized instead of stressing about cutting out the wrong people, instead just focus on adding the right people. And then that shift will just happen organically. You know what I mean? You don't even have to try. It'll just happen naturally. And
Right.
it doesn't create this painful subtraction. Instead you're focused on an exciting addition. And that could go the same for your ad dollars too, right? Like people are so focused on the money they're losing that they forget about the new fans they're gaining.
Yeah, no, it's 100%. Like I see a lot of people online saying like, "Oh, I gotta cut this negativity out of my life," like referring to people, you know, that they
Mm-hmm.
know. And it happens a lot with music people because they're like, "Well, I have a lot of friends who don't support what I do, or I have a lot of family members that don't support what I do," and they tend to focus a lot on exactly what you said. How do I cut these people out of my life to avoid the negativity? But I don't know. I mean, I've never really done that. It's just kind of like, I don't know, don't focus on that negativity and just add more people that do support what you do because they're also doing what you do. You know,
Yeah.
and the internet's a great thing. You know, we would have never met if it weren't for the internet.
Yeah.
Me and almost every music person I know would have never met if it wasn't
Yeah.
for the internet. So you might think that you don't know anyone that relates to you and does what you do, but like there's a community of people that are doing what you do online. You just gotta
Mm-hmm.
you gotta find them and add them to your life and find ways that you can kind of like, you know, develop a kind of weird online relationship and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
provide
Well,
value
it's
to each other.
crazy. Some of my closest friends I've never even met in person.
Right.
Cause it's just, like, we just are interested in the same thing. And just through the power of, you know, social media got introduced to each other. And then we have such similar lifestyles through just those algorithms matching us up through whatever interest we had that it just like, it's so much more, it just happens so naturally.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
my friend Jerry, that's, you know, he's come up on the
Mm-hmm.
channel a few times, but him and I only met once at NAMM because we both
Mm-hmm.
happened to be going
Yeah.
there. I was going there because like my company's registered as a NAMM
Yeah.
company, and he was going there to like teach a session that they have. And but like aside from that, we never met, but we talk like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 days a week. We'll send text back and
Yeah.
forth, and we do weekly webcam chats, and
Yeah.
we live in completely different states. So
Yeah.
it's you never know. Like there's always someone out there that's going to resonate with you. And when I first talked to Tom Dupree, who I had in the show, he was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Man, it was so great to talk to you finally because I've been doing this YouTube thing for a while, and I've never met anyone else that does YouTube as a music creator." And I'm just like, man, that really sums it up because it's what we do is weird if you look at the people you know in real life, but
Mm-hmm.
if you just look out just like a little bit, there's thousands of us online,
Yeah.
and you just gotta like take the initiative and reach out.
That's so true. Like when you say it's like, you know, to me, it didn't even cross my mind as being weird because I just have become so encompassed in this world. But you're kind of right. Like if I think about the people around me, like most people aren't doing this type of stuff.
Right. I don't know a single person in my real like day-to-day physical life that has a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Do you?
No.
So so
Yeah.
basically what that means is that's probably typical for most people who do this type of stuff, whether it's
Yeah.
YouTube or music. And we're kind of like the weirdos, but if you look online, it's like there's still tens of thousands of us. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So where do you want to take this? Like with everything, you got a podcast, you got a YouTube, you got your own music career. Like if you could really snap your fingers and, you know, in the next, 3 to 10 years, really get to where you want to go, what does that look like?
I think. So I have thought about this, but it kind of changes as the years go by, I guess. I want to get this YouTube channel to the point where the main end goal is to help as many music creators as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what the end goal would be to have this be one of the leading music marketing and music business YouTube channels. And I want my podcast interview show, I want people to essentially think of it as that is the Joe Rogan of music marketing in terms of podcast and interview shows.
Yeah.
And I want my channel to be the best source of music marketing on the internet for at least my niche of music marketing. Like I don't tend to, like, for example, if you look at Adam Ivy's channel, for example, he doesn't focus on the ad stuff. He focuses a lot on like the organic content. So not necessarily I'm not trying to go in that direction in my channel, but I want people to think of that Facebook ads and algorithmic playlists and all that stuff. I want to be like the leading source of information for that. And so that's just like the YouTube channel by itself. Now for Generic Studios, the goal is, in terms of at least revenue, it's to bring it to the point where that the products sold through that company are, I guess the current goal is to get that up to 50 grand a year. And then it's going to be to bring it up to 100 grand a year and then keep scaling it as the years go by. But it still has the same mission of helping as many music creators as possible, either through the sample packs I sell or through the one course that I have available, which is the Spotify Growth Machine course. But to kind of sum all that up, I want each of these kind of things to function independently and be essentially by themselves a source of livable income, so that if I wanted to, I would be very safe and comfortable in actually switching to doing that full time. Because I have a day career as a mechanical engineer, but it'd be nice to know that, hey, my YouTube channel, that by itself, full-time revenue source. My company, my sample packs by itself, full-time revenue source. My music marketing products, whether that's one-on-one consultations or the course or doing work for people, like running ads for them, that alone, complete full-time revenue source. And essentially, as you can imagine, the reason why is because it's to kind of bulletproof yourself from the ever-changing world of the internet. Like if YouTube comes along and says, well, we're going to cut out the payment and ads by 50%. Like for a lot of YouTubers over the years, they've essentially made them have to go back to work. If Facebook ads decides to say, well, we're going to double our prices, a lot of business would crumble. So that's why I kind of have that multi-tiered approach of like, I want to have all these little things that all by themselves are a stable, livable source of not just income, but also income and audience and I guess influence, so that if any one of them tanks or even two of them tank, I'd still be fine.
Yeah, well, you really encompass what a reality bender is, right? Like I'm only on episode 3 or 4 now, right? So as I grow more, this is gonna, develop. But to just really get back to what this podcast is all about, it's about finding people that have figured out how to bend reality towards their will, right? When you started, it didn't start with what it's at today, right? I'm sure your goals for what you have right now are completely different than where they were 5 years ago.
They're completely different from where they were 8 months ago.
Yeah. Right. And it's going to constantly evolve, right? But the people that are successful are the ones that can, adapt the quickest, but they still have the general same target, which is a life of fulfillment and happiness. And whether that's through music or a nonprofit or a business, whatever you're doing to accomplish that, at the end of the day, we just all want to be financially secure, happy and fulfilled, right? And we're all going throughout that in different ways. So this podcast is really, celebrating the people that do that, but then diving in deeper about, how they're doing it and finding tactics and ways that we can implement what they're doing and what's working for them into what we're doing.
Right. Yeah. And, you mentioned the whole, the title of the show is obviously Reality Benders, but That's exactly what you have to do with all of these different things. Like you have to have some vision of an end goal, and it's fine if it evolves, but you have to have some vision, and you have to be able to say, well, if I want to be there, you have to kind of do a reasonable guess of what I have to do it along the way to get that. So like you are in a sense creating your own future, and you're going to be wrong. You might be wrong 9 out of 10 times, but if you're right, those 1 out of 10 times, that inches you to, gets you from level 1 to level 2, so to speak. And then, as we were talking about,
I think the big thing, once I incorporated this, it really helped me clarify where I should be taking action, but bringing the scientific method into my approach of taking action, right? So we start with a hypothesis, right? That hypothesis is, what do I want? Like that could be, for me, for example, I want to be a full-time musician, and then I have in that hypothesis the action I'm taking to get there, right? So that's putting out consistent content, marketing myself, networking, getting my finances order, and then taking the money that I make from that and investing it back in, right? I know that if I repeat that process, that I'm going to get some result, right? So every month, at the end of the month, I take a inventory of what I did this month, right? I set goals for this year, this month, and today, right? My goals for this year are going to be, those are the big goals that are going to stretch me. And then my systematic approach of, what I'm going to do to get there is going to give me feedback. So if I work for a month, I'm going to get feedback of the results I got from that action. And then I use that feedback to readjust my initial hypothesis. So if my initial hypothesis is I put out an Instagram post a day, I put out 2 TikToks a day, I launch this Facebook ad with $50 budget running these ads, and I do that, every single day for this month, I'm going to get, 5,000 streams on my music, right? That's my hypothesis. And then my data might be, oh, I only got 3,000. And here's why. Like, this worked, this didn't. Well, now let me readjust that hypothesis. And you just go, and that creates, a positive feedback loop that just compounds over time. And you start to do more and more of what works and cut out more and more of what doesn't. And then when you're surrounding yourself with people that have what you want, they're going to be able to cut that learning curve by a lot. And so this process just naturally gets you there over time. You know what I mean? And you stop being worried when you start focusing it from a place of like, this is my hypothesis. I'm going to see what happens, and viewing it more as an experiment. Then you can kind of like take your emotions outside of like worrying about the results, and you just start to look at it analytically, and it becomes kind of fun. It's like a game you're playing instead of like feeling this need to be successful. Because when you're too invested in the results, then your ego gets in it, and you start doing short-term non-sustainable behavior that's pretty much guaranteeing you're never going to get the result you want in the first place.
And personally, like, when you ask what is the end goal of what we're trying to do, for me, that's a harder question than if you were to say, what is it exactly that you want in like a year? And what is it exactly you want for next year? Or what is it you want by this month? And for me, every single year, I write down the goals for that year in a kind of thing by thing breakdown. So I have a YouTube goal for 2020, I have an Instagram goal for 2020, and I have a Spotify goal for different months throughout 2020. And that's what makes it a lot more game-like than just thinking, well, I need to become a famous rapper, right? Because it's you can actually get some wins that way that give you the confidence to keep going. Like, I can tell you that at the end of this year, my goal is to have 20,000 subscribers on YouTube with a stretch goal of 25. Instagram was to have 2,000 followers, which is a stretch goal of 2,500. And Spotify is to have 100,000 streams a month by the end of the year. And for me, like, that's a much more attainable thing than thinking of, well, I need to completely make a living off of my music or something.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And I think the biggest realization I had, obviously we're chasing these goals, But at the end of the day, when you reach your goals, you're going to feel exactly the same. Right?
Yeah.
You're going to get that initial dopamine rush. It could last a day, it could last a week. But you're so close to it and you invest so much that you expect some crazy result on the other end. And in reality, being successful isn't about hitting that number. It's about chasing that number.
Yeah.
Right. And once I made that pivot, like everything changed for me because, you know, I'm happy and fulfilled now, and I don't have my goal. I have like 200 monthly listeners. This podcast has 1 subscriber on YouTube right now because I'm only on episode 3 or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I have, you know, my net worth is like $6,000. And you look at what I've gone through to get there and you'd be like, oh, why even try?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because that's working 13 to 14-hour days, 6 to 7 days a week for 4 years. And if you look at those results, you'd be like, oh, why even try? But what people forget, you know, our memory isn't very strong, right? So we forget about all the work we've already put in, and we don't see how it's going to compound in the future because our memory doesn't. There's this tipping point where you start to get momentum, and that tipping point starts after we've forgotten about the work we put in, if that makes sense. So what happens for a lot of people is they don't see the fact that they are way stronger and have way more context and way more momentum than they did when they started. They just look at where they are today and they compare it to a completely different person, you know, with completely different results and completely different variables at play. And so when you can learn like, okay, well, I know that as long as I'm consistent and I'm adjusting, that over time I'm going to figure it out. Like you fall in love with that process of figuring it out. And then that in itself is winning. That's success.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I made a bunch of money and I was miserable.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Doesn't mean
really
I don't want
have
to make
to
a bunch of
love
money still.
the process of everything you do. Because like, you know, I'm in a good position where even though I have like, I'm doing music essentially at nights and I have a career by day, I love my day job. Like I went to school for 6 years to be a mechanical engineer. Obviously I liked it. So ideally, while you're figuring out, like not you, but like while you, the listener of the show, you're figuring out how to make your music or whatever business endeavor you're pursuing work, you will ideally have something else that you're doing to kind of fund it in the meantime, whether that's means that you already had a college degree or whether that means you find some kind of job that gives you the freedom to actually pursue what you're trying to do. Like maybe that means taking a job with less responsibility so that you have more free time or flexibility in your work schedule to pursue your passion at night.
I'm telling you, Uber Eats has been a game changer for me.
Oh, do you do Uber Eats?
Yeah, I do Uber Eats, and you know,
I freaking love Uber Eats as a customer.
What's crazy about it is it's like, all right, I get to pick my own schedule. If I'm really like, you know, if I really need cash, I can work all day and I can make $200 to $250. Like that's more than sales jobs I've had where I have some flashy title. Like I'm the senior account specialist, but in reality, I'm making, you know, dog shit for money. Like it's amazing because like
$13 an hour or whatever.
Yeah, for real. Whereas now it's like, you know, with Uber Eats, like I don't have to work today if I don't want to, right? I don't know how long this podcast was going to go, but I don't have to be worried like, oh, bro, we got to be off by 4:30 because my boss wants me to come into work today. Like I literally have the freedom to do whatever I want. And if my music takes off tomorrow, I can quit without fearing about losing my job. And, you know, like if you just understand how to handle your money properly, like you don't need a lot of money to be comfortable. Right.
Yeah.
Like that was the big realization I learned. It's like the key to becoming wealthy isn't making more money. It's being smarter with your money. Right. And because what happens is people make more money, but then their lifestyle goes up. Like if this is the money they're making, so their lifestyle goes up too. They start eating out more. They get the nicer car. They get the nicer apartment. And at the end of the month, although they're making $100,000 a year, they're broke. And that's what happened to me. Like I was making 10 grand a month on average. Top month I did 20 grand and I was in debt. Right? Because I was focused on making money, but I didn't focus at all on keeping it. Because I was like, oh, I got more money coming in. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
it's hard to think about, especially when you're kind of doing it yourself.
Yeah.
Because there's no one there to tell you like, you know, hey, you're spending too much on this or that. Like it's not like in a company where the money that you're bringing in is going to go through like these accountants and people who are experts in investing money. Like it's all on you as the person running the business. So, you know, you, especially since you were what, like 18 or something at the time?
Yeah, I ran the business between 19 and 21.
So you're like 19 to 21, you're not necessarily the best at money you're going to be in your whole life.
Oh yeah. I was a dumbass.
And all of a sudden you're given, not given, but you earn this pretty large sum of money and you just have no idea what to do with it. You just think, wow, for the first time in my life, I have enough money to do what I've always wanted to do. So naturally you go out and you buy the things you've always wanted to. And, you know, I've been there too. You know, like when I started working in engineering, one of the first things I bought was a 3D printer. It wasn't a huge purchase. I didn't buy like a car, but $1,000 3D printer. Then I started buying some drones. And then I upgraded a lot of music gear. I got a $10,000 modular synth next to me. And it's a real thing that like when you're a young kid, and for me, I was 25, so it wasn't even that long ago, but like you get extra money. So naturally you want to knock some items off your bucket list, so to speak. But what's smarter to do, and I would say in hindsight for me, but as you know, you've said too, hindsight for you, is don't change your lifestyle at all. Just save all that cash or invest it in a way that's going to make you more in the future. Like in actual investments and stocks and savings, or
it's literally as simple as get rid of your debt, save up an emergency fund in case something happens. So now you have a safety net, which is going to make you psychologically feel a lot more secure. And then invest $10 a day in an index fund and an IRA. If you do those things, you're pretty much not guaranteed, because nothing's guaranteed. You're pretty likely going to recover. You're going to retire very, very comfortably.
Yeah.
And that's not hard. You can do that all in, you know, like logistically, you could have that all set up in a day. Right? It's just like working out, right? It's not that you need to do these crazy things. It's just about the right habits compounded over a long enough time frame. And that's the same with marketing, right? That's what I'm learning more and more with marketing is like, I used to think it was about getting the viral video. When in reality, it's like, all right, cool, you got that viral video, but if there's no other value outside of that, then the people are going to forget about you. Whereas like someone like you, you're like cultivating a community for the first time and you see it developing, and now you have people that will like, you know, they'll get hyped if you're talking. I get hyped when you hit me up. Like when you helped me out with Facebook ads the other day, that like saved me hours of just banging my head against the wall. And so you see is like, you know, as you're just consistent, like inevitably you start to figure it out.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree. But like the idea of building a community and like nothing really works as a one-time luck thing. Like a lot of people think a lot of artists have like a break it moment, like a make it or break it kind of thing where they just their career took off. But for a few artists, that's the case. But for most, and I say artists, but I mean artist, YouTuber, entrepreneur, it's never really a one-time thing. It's years of making the right decisions and putting effort in and caring and fostering something that's going to kind of last a long time. Not a single one of my videos has ever reached a viral status. It's I built my YouTube channel where it is by just kind of like, I have 530 videos. I mean, like each video takes at least a couple hours. I've spent thousands of hours making videos. And a lot of people, I think don't realize that. Like, it's nice to get like either, let's say your music featured on the radio. It's nice to get on the homepage of YouTube. it's nice to get an article written about your business and like, I don't know, like some newspaper, or magazine or whatever. But like none of that's really going to make a difference. Like it's kind of like showing up time and time and time and time and time and time again, and providing value over time.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, I think we killed it. I think we should wrap this baby up. That's pretty much all I got. Do you want to tell people about what you're up to, promote anything you got going on?
Yeah. If you want to hear more about, my music marketing stuff, go to youtube.com/Andrew Southworth. I'm sure there'll be some link or something in the show notes. And then if you want to hear my music, just look up Andrew Southworth on Spotify or whatever platform you do. And yeah,
Bro, we got to collab on a song, dog.
Yeah, I need to get you that get you a track that we both dig.
Yeah, definitely. We'll figure it out. But by the way, guys, if anyone's watching this, go subscribe on Spotify, and we'll be on Apple Music soon. And I'm trying to grow those platforms up. Just getting started in this. And thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it.